Hey guys, welcome back to another art doll video. So this one is my first little snake art doll. I made a little python designed red and gold snake for Year of the Snake. So I want to do that every year for the zodiac. And this year is a snake, which is mine, Chinese zodiac. But here we have the little red snake so far. So I modelled it off a python, but I definitely want to do more snakes in the future. So I'll give you a little look at the face, if it'll focus. Here we go. There's a little look at the face. I did some sort of yellow green eyes for this one because I thought it would stand out, but it's got the little scent pits, and the underbelly is gold. So it was originally a gold fabric, but you'll see in this video when you watch it how I did the body. But yeah, it's fully posable, so you can pose it in all sort of different ways. Woo! Yeah, I definitely want to do more snakes in the future. This one is currently available in my shop at creaturesandnat.com. I have payment plans available for all of my dolls. And yeah, just shoot me a message and I can let you know how they work. So I'm pretty flexible with all that stuff. But yeah, if you want to see how I made this little snake, then keep watching. Okay, so I'm starting off by creating a little aluminium foil core, and this basically acts like a skull. When you're using polymer clay, you don't want the clay to be too thick when you bake it because the heat can't really penetrate it and it won't end up baking. So I'm keeping this doll a small doll because I make dolls way too big most of the time. So I wanted this doll to be a little doll. So I started off by just creating a small little armature piece and then using the polymer clay to cover it to begin with. So I'm using Sculpey Original for this one. It's the white Sculpey. It's the softer version of Sculpey. I like working with soft clays. I find it a bit easier just for the way I sculpt, but you can get harder clays like Super Sculpey or Sculpey Firm. So yeah, I start off by just covering the foil core with a layer first, and I really rough out a basic shape of the head that I want. So I'm modelling this snake off a python, so I have a few reference images up on my computer next to me, and that way I can make sure I'm getting the right dimensions and keeping it symmetrical. So I'm doing a really rough shape of this one. It's just a really simple head for this one, so I'm not having a jaw or anything movable, so it's a nice and simple version. This is the first snake I've sculpted after how many years of making art dolls. This is the first one I've sculpted. And next I can start roughing out some of the shapes and some of the little basic details that I want. I'm not going to go too overboard with the detailing at the moment, but just doing in basically a blocking little exercise to get the where I want the details to be and just to build up some areas. And then we can move on to the eyes. So I picked out some glass cabochons for this one. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do an open pupil or a closed slit pupil, so I went for the closed version, and I picked a yellowy green eye for this one because I'm going to do this snake a gold red, so I thought these eyes would stand out a bit and sort of complement it a little bit too. So these are little glass cabochons that I bought. I do also make my eyes. Sometimes I paint them, sometimes I make them like this. Just depending on what project I'm working on is what I'll do. So I basically put out a little bit of clay just for the eye sockets. So these cabochons have a flat back, so I want them to sit up a little bit. I don't want them to sit flush against the head, so you need to create a little eye socket for this one. So I just do that by doing 2 bits of clay and sort of putting the cabochons on top and making sure they're all symmetrical. Now I can start adding some little detailing work, like the little eye. They don't really have eyelashes or eyebrows or anything like that, but or eyelids. So basically I'm just creating sort of an area, I guess an eyebrow area. They don't really have eyelids. So just using a small rolled out piece of clay, and that way I can just sort of create the look that I want. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do like an angrier sort of look or a sort of whimsy sort of look, but I went for a more stern looking snake. And then I can start building on that brow line. Okay, so now I can start building up and refining a few more areas before I start adding the finer details. So I just need to build up this snout area a little bit and just around the mouth. So I've done the mouth, but it needs to be built up a tiny bit because it's not sitting quite right. So it needs a bit more of a snout area here. So I'm just going to refine these areas first before I start adding the details like the scales and the scent pits. Alright, so I can start adding a little bit of, I'm kind of mapping it out first to make sure they're sitting right, the nostrils and all of the scent pits. So I use a combination of, well, first mapping it out using this little needle tool, just so they're all symmetrical before I start adding the details in, and then I can go and add the sort of the more detailed work with a little ball tool, so you can get them anywhere. I've got a Sculpey pack. I've got so many different ball tools, but yeah, I get mine basically from AliExpress. You can get all different size ball tools. I've got the Sculpey ones as well, which I primarily use, but yeah, you can use any sort of ball tool. They're really helpful for creating like little indentations and pits like this. And I'm also adding a little bit of the scale work as I'm doing this as well, just so I know where it's going to sit. But when I do the scales properly, I'm going to further detail all of those markings just to make it obviously finish the sculpture off. Alright, so I've done all of the pits and I'm just using my silicone tool to just smooth it out a little bit because sometimes it gets a little bit grubby. So I have to be a little bit more careful with this sculpt because I'm not putting fabric over the top of it. It's going to be a finished piece that I'm going to paint. So I'm just going to spend a bit more time just neatening it up and refining everything. And then once I'm happy with everything, I can start doing all the scale work around the mouth. The scale work around the mouth is a little bit different. They're a little bit elongated. So I tried a couple of different techniques for the scale work. I haven't quite figured out what works for me the best because I haven't sculpted many things with scales before. So I just did a couple of different techniques to see what I liked best. Essentially, I think the easiest way is putting a piece of plastic over the top and adding all the scale work individually. I thought about getting a stamp as well, but I'm not 100% decided on that. I did the same thing for my Drogon doll, but it's obviously a different pattern work for that one, so I'm a little bit not. I think it just has to be done one at a time, to be honest. It just takes time to do scale work, and that's probably why I haven't made many reptiles. So after many hours of scale work, it's finally done, the piece is baked, and I can start adding the paint. So for this particular snake, I'm going to be doing it gold and red. I found this really cool fake, it's like a spandex fabric that has gold snake pattern on it, so I thought that was just perfect. I couldn't believe I found it in my local craft store, so I wanted it red as well. So I did a little bit of an experiment on the fabric to get it to add a little bit of red into it. I really liked the way it worked. So basically for this doll, what I'm going to do is do a really watered down version of the red, so it drips into all of the scale work and brings out all of that detail. So I ended up doing 4 layers of paint on this one, just so I could build up the detail on it and the colours. So I'm using a bit of red from Derivian Matisse is the colour. It's a really nice, rich, orangey red, like fiery red. So I'm using that to begin with as my initial layer, and then once that's dry, I give it a little bit of a helping hand with drying with my heat gun, just so I can progress in the painting. I then do a second coat of gold with the Jacquard, Lumiere Jacquard paint. It's really, really nice paint. So I do a bit of a dry brush technique with that one, and let that dry, and then I'll go over again with a watered down version of the red once again, a little bit thicker this time, just so I have the colour sort of pop and stand out. So I spent a bit of time doing this, a little bit longer than the first version. The first version was a very watered down version, just to get everything into the crevices. This one's a little bit thicker. I just basically went over with the areas that are sculpted in, so I could fill that area with more paint. Again, give that a helping hand to dry with my heat gun, and then I can go over one last time. I did sort of individual scales this time, just so I could sort of do a bit of a neater colour this time with the gold. But yeah, I think it worked really well. It didn't actually take as long as I thought it would, but I think it's a really effective way of painting. So definitely try that again with some more dolls that I make in the future. And once that paintwork is all dry, I can attach it to the armature. So I'm using a 1/8 scale armature for this one. It's my smallest size, and it's really simple doll. Like, I definitely want to make more snakes in the future. It's literally just a tube with one stretch of armature. So yeah, I decided, because it's a small doll, I decided to use a smaller armature. I'm wrapping it in some pipe cleaners. That way I can do the needle felting, and the polyfill will have something to stick to. So the needle felting was super quick as well. Again, I just had to do like a tube of it and sort of taper it down towards the tail end. But the same sort of construction as all my other dolls. And I just bulked up the middle section a little bit as well, just so it's not just a straight, just to give it a bit of volume and voluptuous. Once the needle felting is done, I can start working on the fabric to sew it up. So I pin everything together, give it a bit of a trim So there's not too much excess fabric on the inside. There's a little bit of a seam line, but not too much. And then I can start sewing it up. So I use a ladder stitch to sew my fabric together. And for this one in particular, because it's not faux fur, you have to do the ladder stitches really small and close together. So it basically seals up the seam line. It just makes it a little bit more invisible. So it takes a little bit longer with fabrics that are flat rather than faux fur. So yeah, you just have to do like little stitches and keep the tension on it. I use a good quality thread as well. I use the thread Gutermann, and or I use an upholstery thread, which is really thick if I do things like my flying foxes. So yeah, there's an internal struggle of doing lots of sewing on this snake. The fingertips were a little bit sore. Alright, so once everything is sewn up, I can then start painting all the red in. So like I said at the start, I did a little bit of an experiment on some fabric before. So I'm basically doing the same technique with the watered down red paint, and then I'm going in and wiping off the excess off the gold, so the gold comes out, stands out again. It's a really effective way to work with this fabric. It worked like a charm really. I only had to do one coat. And I just ended up using a bigger brush and wiping the excess off. I did the whole entire snake in about an hour with this red technique. So I definitely want to do more. I'm thinking about doing another lunar snake, Lunar New Year snake. I'm not too sure. Maybe a cobra. I haven't decided yet. Let me know in the comments if you wanted me to do another snake in the So that is pretty much it for this doll. I left it to dry completely before doing anything with it. It's really poseable. You can pose it in a lot of different ways. It's quite a nice doll. So yeah, you can check out my shop at creaturesofnat.com for any other dolls. Maybe this one's still up there. I don't know. Check it out. Payment plans are welcome. I'm super flexible with the way they work. So just send me a message if you want to do a payment plan on any of my dolls. I have heaps of things coming up this year, so I'm kind of motivated this year. Heaps more YouTube stuff. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe to help my channel grow a little bit. It definitely helps me in my art journey, in my YouTube journey. So much appreciated for all the interaction that you have. You can also check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok if that's still around for anybody. So check me out there. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.